This is for Let Battle Commence.
In the next hour, Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Boyd Carpenter and Major General Julian Thompson lock in a clash of arms on the fields of Civil War England. The generals are in command of the Roundhead and Cavalier armies of 1645, and the rules are based on a Ministry of Defence system for tactics training. The generals and their staff are isolated in separate war rooms, and they conduct the battle knowing only what a commander on the ground would have known.
What I particularly wish to know is where the enemy artillery is.
No sign of it at the moment. No.
The generals communicate with their men on the battlefield via a courier, expert wargamer Paddy Griffith.
You have a report from scouts over here that the parliamentary army appears to be in great depth, at least 3 lines.
Well, I'm ordering Astley's 3rd Battalion to hold that position against the Dragoon attack.
So are these the decisive orders then, Ian?
Yes, Paddy.
Right, the orders at 2:50 from the
At the
Royalist-
battlefield itself, the orders are interpreted by Arthur Harman. He then calculates their effect.
Cavaliers will have to throw very high on the blue dice in order to win this combat. And in fact, they do.
On the morning of June the 14th, 1645, just north of the village of Naseby in Northamptonshire, King Charles I had drawn up his army against Oliver Cromwell and the new model army under the command of General Sir Thomas Fairfax. Now, this was the king's last opportunity of defeating the rebels and regaining control of his country. Naseby was certainly the most decisive battle of the English Civil War. Well, today, commanding the 14,000 parliamentarian Roundheads is Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Boyd Carpenter, a former Chief of Staff at the headquarters of the British Army of the Rhine.
Basically, his battle-winning weapons are Rupert's cavalry and Rupert's own generalship on the one hand, isn't it? And the quality of his infantry. Yeah.
General Boyd Carpenter was one of the architects of the reorganisation of the armed forces following the end of the Cold War. He's been deploying his troops with his advisors, Professor of Military Studies at Cranfield University Richard Holmes, and leading defence photographer Peter Russell. Just half a mile away and facing the Roundheads, 9,500 Royalist Cavaliers, a force identical to the 17th century army that actually fought at Naseby. Now, commanding them today is Major General Julian Thompson. He's the man who led 3 Commando Brigade in the very first landings on the Falkland Islands in 1982.
So if we put the infantry out first, shall we?
Let's do that.
I'll slide them out like that.
General Thompson commanded 5,500 men in the Falklands land battles. His advisors today are senior lecturer in the Department of War Studies at King's College London, Philip Sabin, and English Civil War historian Glenn Ford.
So we're going to have to wait for about an hour before they can...
You reckon so? I mean, what effect is artillery going to have?
The battlefield at Naseby is barely a mile across and is confined by difficult terrain on each flank. Both armies have infantry, cavalry and artillery. The Roundheads also have dragoons, soldiers that travel on horseback but fight on foot. Units that have suffered damage are given casualty stickers. For the parliamentarian Roundheads, General Boyd Carpenter has Oliver Cromwell as his second in command. Well, let's now go to the Roundheads War Room and General Boyd Carpenter. General, if you and your colleagues lose today, you're going to be hung as traitors by the King. What makes you confident that you can win the day?
Well, we had an excellent sermon, which has just finished. My people are all very well motivated. We have stronger forces, and we have God on our side.
You may have God on your side, but your army is not particularly well trained in battle. They are rather raw recruits, many of them.
Well, some of them are, but most of my officers have a lot of experience. They've been well hardened in battle. General Cromwell is an excellent leader of cavalry, and my reorganization of my new model army is actually very skilled.
Thank you very much indeed, General.
On the Royalist side today, General Thompson has positioned himself in amongst his well-trained, though outnumbered infantry. His second in command is the nephew of King Charles I, Prince Rupert.
And we can now go to General Thompson in the Cavalier headquarters. General, there is a nation and a king's head at stake today. What makes you think you can win?
I think we can win provided we play it right. And what I hope to do by deploying my army where I have, just north of Broadmoor, between two quite well-covered positions, with the firs on my left and some place called Sulby enclosures on my right, is to persuade the parliamentary army, which knows it's stronger than me, to attack me, and then I hope in my counterattack to sweep them away.
General, thank you very much indeed. Well, our two generals clearly ready for battle, and I wonder today, can the Cavaliers reverse history and see off the Roundhead challenge? Well, to talk us through the whys and wherefores of the various tactics as they unfold, I have with me historical military tactics expert Ian Dickey. Ian, how would you sum up the strengths and the weaknesses of the two armies?
In one word, it's character. The Royalists have Prince Rupert full of dash and elan, and he'll carry his cavalry over the battlefield like hunters after a fox. The parliamentarian side, much more dour and down-to-earth, disciplined, but they haven't got that dash to carry the fight through.
Well, it's mid-morning on what we hope is going to be a very warm and sunny June day. Let's get the first of our orders at 10:30 a.m.
Well, gentlemen, we're starting the game.
Basically, we want the enemy to attack us, and we will then put in a countercharge. That's the premise on which we have based our design for battle. We realize we may actually, in the end, have to attack ourselves, and again, the layout suits that. One of the other things I've got to do right away is send out reconnaissance to try and get to a position where they can see the enemy layout, if possible. And what I will do is send some scouts round this side up onto the shoulders of Windmill Hill there, from where they can see into this dead ground, which I can't see from here.
My ideal situation is that he should attack me, and that he should not be, that my infantry should only become visible to his at relatively close quarters. What I can't afford to have with a more experienced infantry is a long-distance musket battle. He will win that.
And these dragoons in the Selby hedges, are they going to be moving forward or just standing where they are?
Now, I want to work them forward. That will be helpful.
Very good, thank you very much. Well, they're both sitting and waiting for the other side to attack. Both sides are trying to reconnoitre in this area here. They're sending out scouts, so we'll have to give some reports from there, perhaps at 11 o'clock.
Yes.
The dragoons are going to move forward, and there may be a clash
so
in the hedges.
Will encounter Astley's men then.
Yes. I've got reports now as of 11 o'clock.
Right.
In the first place, there is a skirmish going on in the hedges here, because the dragoons have come forward, the parliamentary dragoons. Secondly, you have a report from scouts over here that the parliamentary army appears to be in great depth, at least 3 lines in this area here. And as far as they can see, the whole army is in that area. They can't see into this part of the battlefield, that's dead ground.
Right.
Are we going to roll the dice, Arthur, and decide
Yes.
what's going to happen over here?
Yes.
Now, what have we got? We've got
we
Oakley's
have
dragoons.
Oakley's dragoons. Now, what we have here are men on foot advancing with smoothbore muskets, while their horse holders remain in the rear, holding the horses and trying to prevent them fleeing should they be frightened by the musketry. Now, against those dragoons, the Royalists have sent forward part of Astley's infantry regiment. These are a mixture of pikemen and musketeers. So in fighting on foot, the advantage really will be with them. I'll roll the dice, giving the advantage to the Cavaliers. And indeed, the Cavaliers do drive the dragoons back across the hedge, back onto their own supports. But this is really only a little skirmish.
The dice are very important in playing war games, Arthur, aren't they? I mean, we throw the dice and we say, well, as a result of that, that's actually what's going to happen. We don't want to give the impression that what we're doing is deciding this game on the throw of dice, but I suppose the way that the die come up really represents that element of chance and luck in war.
That's right. In war and in war games, which try to portray war, there is always the possibility that even troops who have the odds well in their favour may actually fail on the day for some inexplicable reason, some unforeseen reason which their commander would not anticipate.
I think, I would certainly send a message to my scouts that what I would particularly wish to know is where the enemy artillery is. And indeed, if not where it is, but what it is doing. Is it in place?
That's no sign of it at the moment.
No.
That's quite critical to our plan, isn't it, really?
That's for anybody's plan.
My orders are to maintain the scouts on the left flank there, in order that they can do two things. Keep an eye on my left flank to ensure that there is no threat to it, and also to report to me what the Parliamentary Army is doing and what it's up to, because of course I still can't see most of it. And also I'm ordering Astley's 3rd Battalion, 3rd Regiment, to hold that position against the Dragoon attack on the right flank.
Fine.
Well, what's going to happen, Paddy?
Well, nothing at the moment. They're still, at least the parliamentarians are still very worried that they don't know where the Royal Artillery is, and they don't know where half of the Royal Cavalry is.
We have plenty of time. It's only 11 o'clock. The pressures on him are identical to ours, readiness way to move. I think it's worth trying a bit longer to see if we can sit him out.
I think there would have to be we would have to do something to force them to attack. But then they may look at the issue of the day drawing on and decide that there's a time when they really have to.
Possibly. So it's in our interest, actually, to delay as long as possible.
We moved the action on till 11 o'clock. Now I suppose we could take it on until perhaps the arrival of the Royalist artillery at Summertoft.
I think the Royalist artillery could become established in the front line by about 11:45. Right, we're now moving forward to 11:45.
Right.
What you have seen is a column of artillery, and your scouts have reported that it's come up from this road, and it's coming down here and deploying in the Royalist front line.
And the Royalists, in accordance with contemporary practice, are deploying their artillery in the front line between their bodies of infantry. This is what we would expect. But they are at least half a mile away from their enemy, and indeed their enemy is largely concealed behind the ridge, so they aren't really in a position to open fire on him.
Is there an advantage in starting an artillery bombardment?
Well, not if we can't see any
I mean,
troops.
lobbing balls over the hill.
I mean, yes, you wouldn't. I can't see it would do any harm.
Because in other words,
Do we
you
want to draw them on?
Yeah.
Or do we want to do anything that encourages them?
Well, I think an artillery bombardment is a way of stinging them into doing something. I mean, okay, one's lobbing balls at a venture, as it were, into a bit of ground you can't see, but it's bound to cause some sort of damage, isn't it?
I'd be reluctant. I think it'll cause no damage at all. If it was worthwhile, they would be doing it to us because we're a much better target. And I think we're simply wasting ammunition. And also, we are betraying the fact that we want them to do something.
Right, yeah.
Yes, it's better to
sit and wait.
Well, there's no more movement at 11:45. They're both telling their troops in the hedge over there to maintain the pressure, keep on fighting.
I think let's dice to see whether, in fact, the Dragoons decide to that discretion is the better part of valour and they should mount up and gallop away.
They've got orders not to, but...
Yes, but with an infantry regiment approaching them, they may well think those orders aren't very valid. Let's see. I'll rate that 5 or 6 they decide to get out. And they do, quite distinctly.
So they're in route, are they?
Well, so they'll be galloping off
Well, not
over
in route.
here.
Dragoons would be perfectly entitled to skirmish, though even though the general's going to be a bit annoyed with them on this occasion.
Well, I mean, we've got the choice. We can either sit it out and see whether basically he gets provoked into moving before we do.
Or go boldly.
Many people don't realise that cold sores are caused by a virus. They'll try anything.
I just use antiseptic.
Nothing.
Aftershave. It stings like crazy.
People who know about the virus use Zovirax early to beat the virus back, which could shorten the attack by days or even stop that cold sore appearing. Why suffer when you can trust the Zovirax cold sore cream to really work?
You can't see them, but hidden dangers in daily life like air conditioning, chlorine, and UV from the sun can damage your hair, robbing it of its healthy-looking shine. Pantene Pro-V gives daily help. The Pro-Vitamin B5 penetrates deep inside, whilst the formula replenishes shine root to tip. Pantene restores the healthy look you need for the shine you want. Pantene Pro-V, for hair that looks so healthy it shines. Give your hair daily shine.
Being single has never been so much fun. Lines are open 24 hours, so call the Singles Network on 0891 808 808.
Almost every time you eat, your teeth are attacked by plaque acid. So in theory, the best thing is to brush after every meal and snack. In practice, when that's not possible, you can chew, because chewing Orbit, or Wrigley's Extra, produces more of your mouth's natural defense, saliva, which, as your dentist will tell you, helps neutralize plaque acid fast and strengthen teeth against decay throughout the day. So whenever you eat, chew.
Now's the time to start filling in your tax return form. That way, if you get a bit lost, you'll have more time to get any help you might need from your tax office, who will be happy to steer you in the right direction.
Sometimes the droughts here are very bad. The search for water is never ending. In the heat of the day, my father digs in the dried-out waterhole, looking for toads. When he has one, he will squeeze out the liquid and drink it. But then, Dad never was the sharpest tool in the box.
Well, hello. You look like a nice guy.
A man with extremely good taste.
Have you scored recently?
Got any extra time?
Wanna play ball?
This is what I want, what I really, really want.
New cheese and chive flavour from Walker's are so irresistible. Taste no more, Mr. Spice Guy.
Midday at Naseby, and Major General Julian Thompson's Royalist Army is trying to force the parliamentarians, under Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Boyd Carpenter, to attack.
Well, it's 12 noon, and after an hour and a half of play, not a lot is happening on the battlefield, much as we expected, actually. The two armies are still sitting there sizing each other up, as they did historically. Good news, though, for the Cavaliers, at least their artillery has now arrived. It's in the front line, but like really most of the rest of the army, just sitting there doing not a lot. The only action we've had today has been over here, behind the Sulby hedges, where Astley's infantry have seen off the Roundhead Dragoons, and you think that that might be significant, Ian?
This skirmish, because both sides have obviously perceived this line of hedges to be significant, which it was to a certain extent in the original battle, this could trigger action from either side. The generals will get reports and they could decide, well, I'm losing this fight, they're going to outflank me. That could trigger the parliamentary attack.
Cromwell, on your right flank, has expressed his great desire, supported by religious convictions and indeed spiritual urgings, to attack the Royalists while we have them at our mercy. And he thinks that now would be an excellent moment to attack. Ireton, for his part, of course, is rather worried about this incoming fire from the hedges. So both of them have reasons to move the cavalry. Now, I have some reports for the situation at 1:30. Time's moved on. You have re-ammunitioned these troops in the hedges, and they have just now commenced a brisk fire on the cavalry, with particular reference to the horses. These dragoons have disappeared off into dead ground. The other point that you must take seriously is that Rupert has had a long conversation with you, and he's very enthusiastic to attack.
So he's pressing for some action?
He is.
He's getting bored, is he?
He is.
Right, well...
He thinks that the advantage lies with the royalist horse on this flank especially.
Right.
We can't.
1:30, I think we need to go.
Yes, I think we can't go as we are. No. The things that are likely to happen is that as we go forward, we'll be shot at in the flank by the Royals musket behind the hedges.
But we will quite rapidly get out of range.
We'll get out of range, but we're not. I mean, we're not going to go. We're not going to be charging from here.
No.
We're going to be going forward in good order. So we need to try and take their minds off us as we go past.
Given the situation, I think you as a commander ought to go across and speak directly to Rupert.
So I will.
Well, yes, I mean, you can respond to him.
Oh yes, I can respond to him.
Respond to him when he came.
I can just trot across.
Yes.
And go and see him.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Right, can I have your orders, please, for 1:30?
Well, what I have done is collected together Ayrton and Skippen and Cromwell, and we've moved forward to the ridge where we can actually look at the position, because we have decided that we will actually attack.
I ride across to Rupert and say to him, I do not want you charging yet. The reason is that I'm not convinced that even if you do break through, that the heavy cavalry here, the Ironsides, won't then immediately attack our infantry as we advance by knocking back Langdale. So I do not want you to attack yet. The moment is not right.
Thank you.
How goes it, Paddy? What news from the front?
We've finally got an offensive in progress. The request by Rupert to attack was turned down by General Thompson. Cromwell has been told to advance, sweep away this cavalry, using as few troops as possible. The artillery is to come forward to the top of the hill and open bombardment as fast as it can. The whole line, including the infantry and Ayrton, will advance together at 2.
That marsh is a problem. The Warren is a problem. It is a pound to a pinch of snuff that no sooner are we through the marsh than Rupert will come up to contact. That's what we must expect. Right. And that he will have he will have at least two more lines of cavalry behind there, 2 regiments on 2, competing with our 3 regiments in the first 2 lines. He may indeed have made this right flank even stronger. So there is, what we may well see is a battle which goes like a swing door.
How long will it take the parliamentarian infantry to get close to the royalist line?
I think we're looking at least half an hour
so
to get underway and move. So
we
we've really
can
got
really
to look.
Take the time up to 2:30.
I think we can.
By which time
they'll all be up here. Yes.
Will they have got that far without being attacked by the royalist artillery?
The main formed bodies of infantry are the artillery target. These packed ranks of men, 6 or 8 deep, shoulder to shoulder. That's a good artillery target.
And when will they come into range?
As soon as they come over the brow of the hill.
The artillery will be firing a last volley as the charge goes forward.
That's right. Yes.
And the wind will be blowing into their faces, so the smoke from the artillery will roll down onto them.
Well, if we lose this...
And actually, the smoke will blind them, so that it would actually be almost advancing under a sort of smoke screen.
God, I hope so.
Why the hell did they charge?
Were they forced to?
Maybe.
Oh, well.
Well, I mean, we should still lose, but I can't see...
We can still lose.
If they get through the first, then we've got problems.
What?
If that, with those reserves,
yes.
If they get through that first...
Well, that's why we're counter-charging.
That's why counter-charging, to stop them coming around.
Now we need to look at Cromwell's charge.
I think this cavalry would wish to counterattack, because it was standard practice in the 17th century never to receive a charge at the halt.
Let's just dice for that, because the Northern Horse, we are aware, are a little bit shaky.
Yes.
And indeed, they do receive it at the halt. I will impose a penalty on the Royalists for their poor morale and receiving the charge at the halt, so they will have to score much higher than the Roundheads on the red dice in order to win this combat. and they do not. So, in fact, that first Royalist line crumbles and flees away.
On this flank, Cromwell had a great deal of difficulty getting through the Warren, and also this Furs is rather delaying his right flank. But his advance came on remorselessly, and it was not received by a counterattack. The front line of the Northern Horse received him at the halt, which is inferior tactics.
Very unwise, yes.
And they were chased off.
Right. I think I'll take them across, see that it's going well, and if it is going well, then I'll probably come back here just to see, keep an eye on this one. And also, I should want to know how that's going.
That's right.
Too.
We've just got to buy enough time for Astley.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to do. It's all down to Astley. Oh dear.
So we're 4 hours into the game and we've had the first major clash of the morning at just after 2:30, just as we thought. Astley has been so successful with his Cavalier infantry over here on the west flank, pushing back those Roundhead dragoons, that in fact the Roundheads have been forced into making a charge on the Royalist lines. It means that Prince Rupert, not having huge success over here in the west, but at least he is at the moment holding those Roundhead cavalry, while the infantry are inflicting quite heavy casualties on the Roundhead infantry, though over here in the east, Cromwell's cavalry have had success against the Northern Horse, as we thought. They were a bit dodgy on the day. So what we've got is that sort of wheeling action, Ian, isn't it, which is actually quite typical of this period.
That's right, where you have strong, well-led right-wing cavalry on both sides, you tend to get a pirouetting movement like a pair of dancers.
Right.
What's your orders?
I give my orders to my infantry: advance, charge.
Yes.
I take 3 of my reserve regiments personally, as the general, round to support Langdale here, and I order Langdale to reform behind me. As I go past him, as I ride past him, I give the order, rally rear.
Yeah. This is the first line.
The first line.
Back.
The first line here. And I'm going to take the reserve, pick up what there is left of Langdale's, and put in a full-blooded cavalry counterattack.
What are your orders then?
Right.
Please?
Skippon is to close as rapidly as he can with the infantry and get in to push a pike as quickly as he can.
Yes.
Arton is to get his original front line behind the third and get themselves reorganised as rapidly as possible. The second line is to keep up with Skippon and keep contact with Skippon there, protecting the flank, with the original third line committed behind it. Oki is to get round to the north as rapidly as possible round here, fight his way through so that he can actually be poised up on this flank. Cromwell is to continue pressing forward with his first rank here, to push off the remaining cavalry there.
Now we have to look at the infantry combat all along that front.
All this stuff.
Yes.
Right.
So in the first case, we have Skippon's parliamentary regiment has suffered some disorganisation and quite heavy casualties. So the advantage there is in favour of the Cavaliers. Skippon will have to throw very high to win this one.
And this is Rupert's Bluecoats they're up against.
Indeed, and in fact, the parliamentarians fail miserably.
Rupert's Bluecoats, the infantry regiment, has had a singular success against Skippon's regiment, which has been pushed back with very heavy casualties. There's a push of pike continuing here, but you've got the better of it. Right, have you some orders then for
Indeed.
250?
I'm taking this reserve up to here, handing them over to Langdale, telling him to take command of this left flank push, telling him to push back Cromwell, and then use these 2 cavalry regiments to attack the right flank of the parliamentary infantry. I shall then ride hell for leather over to this side and send Newark and the King's Life Guards in to support Rupert with orders to push back the cavalry to protect the left flank of my infantry, and I shall then get across to Astley and assess the situation in the middle to try and get more push behind it to make a breakthrough in the middle.
Okay, Arton's wing to keep pressing here and be ready, if he's successful, to actually engage back on the flank here. Pride's third to be committed in support of this, and the second line to get ready to take over the advance passing through the first.
Yes.
Cromwell to keep pressing here, the others move up and behind, try to avoid getting committed yet.
So after hours of inactivity, suddenly Naseby has exploded into action with men and horses all at close combat. The battle line now stretches the best part of a mile from west to east. On the two flanks, we have cavalry battles in progress, a clash of sword and horses. In the middle, the infantry hand-to-hand fighting with muskets and with pikes. And right at the centre of everything, we have General Boyd Carpenter, who is right up front, leading his men at the heart of the battle. Let's go to him straight in the Roundheads War Room, and I have to ask you, General, why you have given up your position where you can control the entire battlefield to put yourself in the front line in such a vulnerable situation.
I'm not in the front line, I'm just behind it, but I need to be in the position where I can get very quickly to my senior commanders and really to see what's going on. Any decisions I can take now have to be taken very rapidly, and it may need me to lead some troops personally to keep their morale up. And this is the critical stage of the battle. This is where I need to be.
But why did you attack in the first place?
Time is beginning to run out for us. We need to win this battle before dusk, and it will take time. And the enemy were clearly not going to come to us. I don't want to sit this out. I want to actually finish this and really win this battle before darkness comes.
Thank you very much indeed, General. Now let's indeed go straight to the Cavaliers' war room and to General Thompson. General Thompson, do you believe that you have enough strength to actually hold the day and win this battle?
Yes, I do. I think that the critical moment's arrived, and if we can just hold on long enough, we can break through, and I think we can win this battle. I'm confident of it.
Are you confident, though? You're very close to the Northern Horse, which you must have seen retreat in some disarray. Are you confident now that you're going to be able to hold on that eastern flank?
I'm confident we can hold, and I'm confident we can break through.
General, thank you. Well, Ian Dickey in the studio with the main map in front of you. Is the General right to be so optimistic? Can he hold?
It's desperately critical. This could well be the high water mark of the Royalist position. He's got very few reserves, and because he's outnumbered, he needs to get these reserves all into action absolutely as soon as possible. Otherwise, he could find it turns against him.
I think we need to actually resolve the combat here with Prince Rupert's horse and Fleetwood's and Ritchie's regiments, because, for instance, were Rupert to turn that little combat around and drive the Roundhead horse back in disorder, that would in fact prevent the second line from hitting Rupert's bluecoat infantry in flank.
So what are we going to roll for
We'll
then after?
resolve the cavalry first. So the advantage is still with the parliamentarians because Rupert's troops were driven back in some disorder with casualties. I think the presence of General Thompson arriving in the middle of that is not going to be terribly significant. In the middle of a fight, it's not as if he was leading up formed fresh troops to help. So I'm going to give the parliamentarians an advantage there. The Cavaliers will have to throw very high on the blue dice in order to win this combat. And in fact they do.
6-2.
So in fact the presence of General Thompson arriving has actually given fresh heart to Prince Rupert and his men.
We haven't got enough to break through here.
You've got your breakthrough.
I think that if we don't keep the pressure up here, he may well make a comeback because he's got.
No, he won't make a comeback. He won't make a comeback.
But he can
It's
keep
so
us
narrow.
That's fine.
It's too narrow, you think?
Yes.
But what I still want to be able to do is to break that.
You've got the
impasse
break.
there.
You've got the break. You've got to exploit it. You're taking those troops back. You've broken 3 regiments. You've got to put that cavalry in there and take them out.
Arthur, in the middle of all this activity on that front, we've still got General Boyd Carpenter right in the thick of it, men and horses fighting and dying all around him. Should we be rolling to see whether or not he's been injured?
Yes, Angela, we must do that. Although he said he was in with his second line, in fact, he's within musket range of the Royalist troops, and a stray ball, rather than a deliberately aimed shot, might well hit him. Let's see if a double comes up, but no, it didn't.
So he's still safe,
he survives
he's
again.
still intact, and still presumably in some command of what's actually happening.
I'm going to go and join Arton, who's sort of reconstituted by now, and ready to commit, if necessary, here through these to relieve the pressure there. Hammond to remove here to a blocking position in case there's a total breakthrough round and he tries to roll me up. Skippon, Waller and Pride first to start reconstituting round here.
It's going to take him an awful long time.
I know it's going to take a long time, but that's the best we can do. At the moment, there's apparent to be a gap here. If there is a gap, be prepared to push that cavalry brigade through that gap and actually break his line.
Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remain here. I'm changing my plan. I was going back into the
Yes.
centre. I'm going to remain here with Rupert because this seems to be flowing our way. I shall send a courier. I don't want to leave them now because they might see me riding away and thinking I'm deserting them or letting them down.
Yeah.
I'm going to send a courier to tell these two regiments
Yes.
to come up to me here
Very
to
good.
reinforce, to keep this swing going now.
Mhm.
And I'm going to break through here, then turn in. Because I'm with Rupert, I shall have a hold him by the lower band and prevent him from going swanning off into the baggage. I shall be right beside him. And I shall then tell him to swing his cavalry in on this infantry here.
At 3:05, a major morale boost for the Cavaliers. General Thompson has arrived over on his west flank just in time to see that Prince Maurice and Prince Rupert and their cavalry have beaten off the Roundhead cavalry and regained control on this flank, which is really good news for Rupert's bluecoats down here in the valley, because they were going to be under pressure from that cavalry, but now they've managed to plug that hole and hold the Royalist line. In fact, the Royalist infantry have fought brilliantly all along that line. The only place that they've been broken is here, over on my left, where Montague's parliamentary forces have broken through and are now fighting with Royalist infantry here in the second line. A good day so far then for the Royalists, Ian.
Very much so. They have actually fought brilliantly, but it's still crucial. The Roundhead side still has far more troops. General Thompson has got to get his reserves up and keep the pressure on, keep the momentum going, otherwise it could all so easily turn against him.
Just for the fun of it, the break from being a mum of it. Just for the buzz of it, she does and she does of it. Just for the try, the buy, the absolutely positively have to die for it. Just for the taste of it, Diet Coke.
Get ready! Come here, you speckled. Because 101 Dalmatians is here on video. 101 thrills, 101 spills, and 101 of the most adorable puppies ever spotted. Own Disney's 101 Dalmatians, live and unleashed on video.
Some thoughts on should I sleep with it or not? This is a big question. I mean, how long can you really wear a tampon? Overnight? All night? How many hours is okay?
It says here my Tampax tampon can be worn overnight.
An expert review of independent research says that tampons can be worn day or night for up to 8 hours.
That's reassuring.
So I can wear Tampax overnight without losing any sleep.
But do I have to go to bed? Tampax. Women know.
Don't be bored, Carl!
Friends!
What's the number then? Oh! 891 47 47 47.
Ooh!
We are all unique, but we are all pH 5.5, the pH of healthy skin. And Johnson's pH 5.5 2-in-1 shower gel respects this pH. Its moisturizers leave our skin feeling healthy and as soft as if we'd used a lotion. Johnson's pH 5.5. We are all pH 5.5.
Because of the kind of work I do, and having clean, shiny hair is an absolute must for me. I'm a real
fiddler when it comes to my hair. I push it behind my ears a lot. So if I've been working all day and I've fiddled with it a lot, I mean, that makes it dirty. I always wash my hair with Head & Shoulders dandruff shampoo every day.
pH-balanced Head & Shoulders clears dandruff, and it's mild enough to use as often as you want.
It's very touchable hair. You want to feel it because it looks so sort of healthy and shiny. I keep it nice and clean so that I can fiddle with it afresh the next day.
Just after 3 p.m. on the battlefield of Naseby, and the Parliamentarian General, Sir Thomas Boyd Carpenter, has moved over to the western flank. The Royalist General, Julian Thompson, has done the same. But because of their new positions, neither general is aware of parliamentary progress in the east.
They all, I don't know how they've all broken, but that's the best possible opening you could have had. Because it's not the front line that's gone. You've taken the reserves out. They must have carried them with them.
Yeah.
And once they go, I think we've got it.
So?
Well, looking at the Royalist cavalry attack now on the Royalist right wing, we see that in terms of numbers, the troops are fairly evenly matched, and also in terms of casualties previously suffered. The one great difference is the Royalists are charging downhill, and also they have the leadership of General Thompson in person and Prince Rupert. That's got to give them an advantage. So with the advantage to the Royalists, the Parliamentarians will have to throw very high to succeed here. And it's not enough, so we've got a massive cavalry battle going on at the foot of that slope.
My hunch is that this ought to go our way. That will probably just go our way. I think much will depend on how well Montague's boys do.
Yeah. We can exploit that.
And at least we've got that cavalry on hand to exploit the gap. It's no comfort, but I think this will either work or not.
Very sound comment.
So my final answer is maybe.
Now, the Bluecoats then. Obviously, their flank is protected by that forward movement, so it's the Bluecoats against Pride. Now, the Bluecoats have fought splendidly, but they must be somewhat tired now, and a fresh parliamentary unit is coming up against them. Although they will have the morale boost of their victory, I think now perhaps the advantage is even or ever so slightly in favour of Parliament there with those fresh troops going in.
Okay.
So the Bluecoats will have to get a good advantage on the die roll here to succeed in hurling Pride back after its fellows. And they don't. So, in fact, the Bluecoats pushed back slightly.
In the middle, what's
right,
happening
moving
there?
along. Now, we now have Pride versus...
Astley.
Right,
Pride's
the
got
advantage with Astley.
Yep. Uphill and no casualties.
But the action now swinging slightly in favour of the Roundheads will give Astley a sticker, and that's still troops locked in push of pike.
It's surprisingly little casualties on the infantry on the other side.
Mm. Well, tell Rupert's Bluecoats. Depressingly good.
And also, we're fighting uphill against them all the time.
Well, we're on top now. I mean, we're on the guns.
Yes, yeah. On the right, I'm certainly on the right flank. The left is still a bit struggling. But that's why we're taking the beating, so...
Cromwell's right, it's not gone further forward than that.
Well, it's looking better than it was.
It's looking better than it ever could possibly.
There's no great point of danger. That's not a point of danger. We've got uncommitted reserves we can put in. That's not a point of danger.
Yeah, you're going to need those two regiments to hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to be needed as a hinge, as an anchor point, really.
Is this the important part of the battle now, Arthur?
I
What's
think
happening
this,
here?
for the infantry battle, this could be the very important end of the line, because Parliament has made progress previously here and looks set to do so again. Montague's men, buoyed up by their success, I'm going to rate that, I think, as evens. They're going up against fresh troops, and, an overwhelming victory there for Montague. So, the enemy is driven off in disorder. Montague suffers only light casualties. The defenders break and rout in disorder, losing heavy casualties. 2 stickers, please, and they won't be rallying for a long time, so we can put them in flight back down that road. Now, we have 2 Roundhead regiments against 1 here.
We've got Rainbow, who's fresh, Fairfax has got one spot against Bard.
Yes, well,
Royalists
it's
with
those
one spot.
fresh troops going in on the flank that are really going to make the difference and give an overwhelming advantage to Parliament. So I've got to take several points off the blue die here to allow for the disadvantage. So really, the Royalists have got to hope to score 6 and that Parliament simultaneously scores a 1 to survive this. And they don't, so the Royalists will be broken and go streaming back with another casualty sticker,
So
please,
that's
Ian.
Bard's entire brigade.
Yeah.
We should have enough to hold there now with those
Yeah, we
reserves.
should have enough to
They
hold
haven't
there.
been committed. Unless they try to do... I can't see how they can do anything with those.
It's too narrow, you're quite right. You're absolutely right. I was thinking they might, they might come in like that, but you're absolutely right. They're limited by that line there.
Should we plan our escape route now?
So where does that leave us on the battlefield then, Ian? Who is winning? It looks a mess.
At this stage, I would say that parliamentary numbers are beginning to tell, and now that the Royalist foot seem to have been halted and starting to take casualties, we've got 2 units en route. I stick my neck out and say the king can't win.
Yes, you do lose the war if
I die.
you're killed.
He's not the king.
Oh, that's
I'm not the
true,
king.
yeah. Sorry,
I'm not the king. That's the point.
getting
you see.
carried
The
away.
king is having a beer in Civital, waiting for the news of the victory that I've won in.
You've still got victory on the field.
Got any white?
Looks you're coming to bear bad news.
Now, I've got a situation update to 3:25. You have seen a considerable force of the Royalist infantry retreating very rapidly. So it looks as though you have had a significant success on that flank.
Right. Two messengers to make certain they get through.
Yes.
To Cromwell to tell him to make certain that his 2nd brigade here masks and keeps off this cavalry. He reconstituted these. But it's very important now that Pye and Sheffield get through this gap and start railing up the infantry here. And the same message obviously goes to Skippon to continue doing that with his infantry in that way. So we're trying to push here. Meantime, I will try and get out and slot forward to join to this melee and push from there. So this is the moment.
Thank you.
General Thompson is still fighting right in the front line over to the west, so he has no idea that his eastern flank is crumbling.
What I'm going to do is the psychological advantage of me being there has been enough to turn the tide. It's now important that I put myself in a position where I can find out what's going on and influence the battle if necessary. So I turn to Rupert and say to him, you are now back in command of this wing. Keep pressing, but do not, on any circumstance, if you break the cavalry, go swanning off. I'm going to fall back a bit so I can send couriers, 2 in number, 1 to Astley to say, well done, keep pressing, let me know how you're getting on. One,
Use your reserves if necessary.
And use your reserves if necessary. Another to Langdale, saying, well done, keep pressing, but do not, under any circumstances, pursue the cavalry if it breaks away off the battlefield. Make certain you turn inward and hit with the reserve and hit the right flank of the enemy infantry.
Thank you.
And at the same time, I will be keeping an eye here so that when he's pushed the enemy cavalry back, we can then swing part of the cavalry force in behind here.
Very good. Okay. Good.
Good.
Oh,
right. How?
You see, we may have won there. We just wouldn't
You
know.
want to know? We'd
We
like
may
to
have
know.
won.
We'd like to know.
Yes.
Pickering and Lisle are 2 spots each.
Right, and
Pickering's
disadvantaged
disadvantaged.
because he's really being threatened on his
the
flank.
yes.
So he'll have to throw very high to win this one, and he doesn't. So he's going to take another casualty spot
That's his third.
and go to the rear. He's broken. So the parliamentarians have actually succeeded in breaking that royalist left wing. Now the cavalry combat. We have fresh troops from Cromwell under his own personal command now. These are really going to be quite effective. It's even numbers, but I think the advantage has to be with them for Cromwell's own presence and the fact they've been held in reserve, haven't fought at all, they're delivering a controlled charge. Right, so the advantage is with them. Decisive melee, They take the enemy position after a hard fight, so the parliamentary troops take moderate casualties and won't follow up, but the defenders make off to the rear, disorganised, again with moderate casualties but very shaky morale. So it looks as if that flank is crumbling and Parliament are going to do it.
Well, gentlemen, given the orders we've just received and the moves we've just made, and the fact that over here on the eastern flank the Royalists are crumbling under this ferocious cavalry and infantry attack from the Roundheads, is there now any way that General Thompson can save the day for the Cavaliers?
No, he's lost it. It's over, I'm afraid. He's 2 remaining cavalry units here facing twice as many. The infantry in the same have got odds of 2 to 1 against. The remaining cavalry here are just bogged down in a melee that is not likely to be decisive one way or the other.
Right, I've got an update up to 3:40. Another quarter of an hour's move. But this time you're not in the front line of the fighting. You've been able to step back and take a wider view. You have found that Prince Rupert has taken his responsibilities seriously. He's continuing to press forward here, immediately to your front, as indeed his infantry is still fighting well, and Astley's there. However, further over on the road behind you, you can see a rather ominous series of fugitives, obviously fleeing in some haste towards the rear, and that's infantry. You can't see the details of what's happening on this flank because it's too far away at the moment, but that's the situation at 3:40.
Well, my immediate reaction would be to go across to Astley and see what's wrong, because everything was going fine until then, so it's a pretty extraordinary thing to see the infantry streaming back. I can only assume that perhaps the cavalry on the left, the enemy cavalry on the left, has put in some kind of massive attack and has hit the flank of my infantry.
The point being that while you were in the front line here, a lot of things were happening that you weren't aware of.
Sure. So that's what I would do. I would ride across and find out what was going on.
Thanks.
What the hell's happening?
Very odd.
This cavalry can't have broken.
No.
Unless he's done something with those and sent them round. But
exactly.
Langdale would have seen it.
Sure.
I mean, this is the
regiments
second
haven't been
line.
committed.
They haven't been committed yet.
This is crazy. Does this mean we're going to lose?
What?
Oh, yes.
Is what?
That's it. That's it. We've lost. Well, it doesn't. That makes
doesn't
no
add up.
sense.
Doesn't
it
add
doesn't
up.
make any sense.
I think you have got to take a small lifeguard of horse and get stuck
and
in.
get Pye stuck in
And you
there.
have got to get the movement going.
Yeah,
on that
I've got to
side.
get over there, and that's where I'm going to move now. And Pye has got to go there. Fairfax Montague, got to press round, and I'm going to wind it up from there.
Thank you.
And anyone else who can swing the broadsword or
Absolutely.
wield
If he's holding there, that's all right. Yeah.
But you reckon we're going to have lost if those guys are running away?
Oh, this.
So after 5 1/4 hours on the battlefield, the Roundheads have once again held the field at Naseby. Now, the battle itself lasted barely an hour and a half, and initially it did look as if the Cavaliers had the upper hand. But then, less than an hour ago, the Roundheads smashed through on the eastern flank. They took out the guns, they took out the infantry, and now, indeed, there is no alternative, apparently, for General Thompson but to withdraw. There is now no way that he can win the day for the Royalists. So let's go to him at the Cavaliers' War Room. General Thompson, it would appear that you have been overrun by sheer numbers. You can now only leave the field with as much of your army as you can possibly manage. What do you think you can possibly do?
Well, I've got plenty of cavalry left unharmed on the right wing, and I've got plenty of good infantry. It's only a breakthrough on a pretty narrow front, actually, from what I can make out at the moment. And with my cavalry and my infantry, I will fight a measured battle back to the village of Sibbertoft, where I will eventually, I hope, be able to reconstitute my army and have another go.
Well, you obviously intend to fight another day. Meanwhile, General Boyd Carpenter, you are the victor at this Battle of Naseby. What for you was the turning point in the battle?
I think the turning point was when General Cromwell did so successfully on one flank, and indeed General Oughton held against Prince Rupert. And I think that was actually turned the whole thing. But now, in fact, is the most important point for me, because this is a time that I need to ensure that the Royalist troops do not escape, in particular his infantry. These are his last infantry. And this is the moment when I'm actually going to have to whip up my tired and exhausted troops to really turn this victory into a rout. That's not easy, and that's what I'm going to have to concentrate on now.
General, thank you very much indeed. As we say, the parliamentarians did win at Naseby. Let's get our two generals in now so that they can see for the very first time the full picture of the battle. Well, generals, come and have a look and see where you were. I think you should shake first, though. Yes, just to show it was all friendly. There you are. That was the true story. Did you know that this is where you were?
Well, I think we knew where we were. So I hope I knew where I was.
Yeah.
I think my Royalist army did very well.
Yes, they did.
Rather better than they did the previous time round.
Yeah, well, they did actually. You got great compliments from Ian.
And I'm very proud of them. I thought they did a tremendous job.
You were pushing your luck a bit, weren't you? Going up here, right in the front, men and horses dying all around you.
But that's where you need to be in a battle of that nature, because if you can't see what's going on there, I mean, the smoke will be all over it. And if you're not up there, you won't have a clue what's going on. You might just well be 10 miles back.
You've no idea how close you got to being shot by Arthur and his dice.
Well, I mean, the casualty rate of generals of those times, I mean, I think at the real battle, at least two of the senior parliamentary commanders were wounded.
That's right.
And you can only do it like that.
Well, Generals Boyd Carpenter and Thompson, thank you both very much indeed. I'm glad that you're able to at least have a laugh and shake hands at the end of it. All that we have to do now is to thank our tactical historical military expert, Ian Dickey, and of course our two umpires, Paddy Griffith and Arthur Harman. Well, 350 years on, the result was the same, though the tactics were different. But then, that's what can happen in a game of war. Goodbye.